Hello and welcome to Golden History. The American colonies resist British taxation, and here we go. We're getting close to the American Revolution in this Google slide. So the first thing we want to discuss, right? We know that the French and Indian War has ended. That the British pretty much won the war. They were able to get or conquer more land from this victory. And it kind of pushes the French out of North America into more of Canada and to the West. Okay, and with that comes this first problem and first cause of the American Revolution, the Proclamation of 1763, and this was one of the terms after the French and Indian War was over between the British and and their subject colonists. Okay, and what the proclamation line did is it ran along the Appalachian Mountains. Okay, right along here, and it basically stated that the colonists could not settle past this line. Okay, anything to the west of this line in Appalachian Mountains was reserved for the Native Americans, and they did this to keep the fighting between the colonists and the Native Americans to a minimum. Right. They have just conquered this area. The France are now gone. The British are now in debt from war. Okay, they have about 10,000 troops occupying this area, right, in the colonies, just to keep the colonists safe and from themselves as well as from Native Americans and not fighting here, and also to make sure that the French that are over here don't try to inch themselves back over into the new gained territory. All right, so taking a step back, this conflict with Native Americans, all right, and that's kind of where is the cause for this proclamation line. All right, some of this we've studied already, and I just want to review it. Pontiac's War in 1763. This is after the French and Indian War. The British controlled almost all North America east of the Mississippi River. Native Americans along the Appalachian Mountains want to defend their land, and fighting engaged between the Native Americans and the settlers. Okay. In May 1763, Pontiac of the Ottawa Nation formed an alliance with his western tribes, and the tribes and the British fought each other with equal viciousness. Okay, and this was kind of the end of the Native American resistance, and that happened at the British victory at Fort Pitt, which is known as today as Pittsburgh, in the summer of 1763. Okay, and so with that, the British go, this is getting a little out of hand. We're in debt. We don't want to keep soldiers over here in the colonies for that long of a time. So let's draw this proclamation line, right? And so we don't have any more of this quarreling between the Native Americans and the colonists. All right, colonists were angry about this proclamation line. Keep that noted, because they did sacrifice for the French and Indian War, right? And they thought it was their right to keep moving, and it wasn't the British government's. They didn't have the authority to tell people where they can and cannot settle, especially in this new world, right? So here, the Proclamation of 1763, which is this line that we discussed right here. Whoop. Okay, it bans settlement west of a line drawn down the Appalachian Mountains. Prevent conflict with Native Americans was one of the goals. Unfortunately, it angered colonists who believed they had the right to settle anywhere, and the act was pretty much widely ignored and almost proved impossible to be enforced by the British. Okay, so that's the first, cause of the American Revolutionary War is this French and Indian War, and then the Proclamation of 1763 can get bundled into one. All right. The next thing we're going to talk about is British taxation. Wonder where we're going to go with this. All right. The Sugar Act. All right. British debt. So as I said, after the French and Indian War, the British were ravaged by debt. And they were still financing soldiers along the proclamation line and trying to rebuild their economy. In doing so, they felt that the taxes shouldn't just fall upon the British people, right, in Europe. That the colonists should have to pay some of this debt off as well, because they were part of this. They are part of the kingdom, right? So in 1764, the British Parliament imposes the Sugar Act, which is an import tax on molasses and sugar, okay, or a duty. So before, right, how the British would collect taxes is that the taxes would be due at the docks, right? Pretty much, you got stuff there, they'd be at the docks and give us the money. So at this point, the British have to start enforcing it, right? A little more harsher than they were before. They also had to put harsher punishment on smugglers. Okay, and before this, a lot of times the taxes for sugar were collected, at the retailers, right? And at the so if you went to a coffee shop, right, that's where the sugar tax would be placed. But a lot of times people were finding ways around this, and so the tax had to be collected at the docks. The Quartering Act. Okay. Um, so as we keep back here, let me pop back here for a second. The first thing that really got the colonists angry is this Sugar Act. All right, now we have a Quartering Act. In 1765, Parliament passed an act with this purpose to save money, right? And it was to require colonists to house soldiers. Okay, with that, a soldier, especially the higher rank, the more options you have. You can walk up to any colonist and say, "I'm going to be staying at your home," and they would have to afford you a room, supplies, and food. Okay, take care of your laundry and pretty much house you, or what the word quartering it means to house. Okay, all right, the colonists were infuriated by this, and they believed that this was against their rights, having soldiers living at their home. I mean, could you imagine today, could you imagine right now in this coronavirus, if the United States has some, or in the state of New Jersey, um, I guess you could say, got the New Jersey National Guard, enacted, and they were actively, you know, testing people, and they all needed to be quartered, and you had three soldiers living in your house. Can you imagine how violated you would feel from having three complete strangers living in your home, and you have to give it's them before you? It's a pretty tough one. It's a tough one to swallow. The Stamp Act doesn't stop there. We have the Sugar Act, we have the Quartering Act, and Stamp Act. The British just keep hammering the colonists at this point. All right. In 1765, Parliament passed the Stamp Act. It required all colonists to buy special stamps for all kinds of products and activities, meaning newspapers, licenses, land titles, game cards, any kind of paper product needed to have this stamp on it. Okay. This infuriated colonists from the very poor to the very wealthy. Okay, the House of Burgesses, the acting government in Virginia, declared that only they could tax Virginians during this time. There were widespread boycotts of British goods over the Stamp Act, which later it minimalized British trade profits. So this didn't help the British at all. They thought it would help, but the colonists just stopped buying paper products, right? And they really started boycotting manufactured goods from Britain. In October of 1765, delegates sent a petition to the king in Parliament asking them to revoke or repeal these acts, and they did. Eventually, in 1766, the Stamp Act was repealed and a Declaratory Act was passed. And this is a bold move by the Parliament, and that act gave Parliament total authority over the colonies. Okay, so as Parliament is kind of seeing this unfold, they're like, this is getting out of control. The colonists need to understand that they are still British subjects, and they are under the law and the rule of Parliament and the King. Okay, and this Declaratory Act was kind of passed just to shove in the face of the colonists, saying, "Look, we have the authority here, not the House of Burgesses, not any government or acting government in any of your colonies." Okay. Oops, sorry. And so here's an image in New Hampshire of the Stamp Act. This would be a collector, maybe a stamp collector or tax collector, where they're holding up a pinata kind of thing of him, and and making a mockery of it. So you can kind of see that happening here. All right, so the next up we have the Townshend Act. In 1767, Parliament passed the Townshend Act. Its purpose was to tax colonists without resistance. Okay, they were kind of, worried about all the resistance that the Stamp Act, the Sugar Act. Oh, here we go. Sorry, the Stamp Act and the Sugar Act caused in the colonies. So they just wanted their money and they didn't want conflict. We're in debt. We just got out of war. Just pay us. Just give us some tax money. Okay. So what the Townshend Act did was it removed all the previous taxes. All right, they're all done. Quartering Act still in place. All the taxes, you're good. Okay. Instead, we would just like to tax only the products imported into the colonies. So anything you make in the colonies, fine. Your paper products don't need our stamp. But anything that arrives to your shores on a boat needs to be taxed. Okay. And with this Townshend Act, this rights of assistance, right here, a term that was put into the Townshend Acts, which gave the British tax collectors a court order to search without cause or reason. So any boats pulling up to the docks, they would just search. They wouldn't tell you why. They would just search it. If they found something, they'd keep it, or they tax you, or they throw you in jail, right? So it's gave them quite a bit of power over the what's coming into the colonies. Okay. Parliament also suspends all colonial assemblies of governments. Like I just said, the House of Burgesses before, nope, canceled. New Jersey's legislatures, canceled. Philadelphia, no, sorry. Pennsylvania, nope, not gonna happen. Everyone, you don't get this authority anymore, right? The British is like, who are you? Who do you think you are? Right? You're pushing the envelope now. Now you need to disassemble these mock or rogue governments, and you need to start realizing that you are British subjects. Okay, the colonists themselves feel that. Sorry, I keep doing this. The colonists feel that these acts are more violations of their rights. Okay, and this leads even further to the separation of the loyal and unloyal, or what's going to be called patriots, in the American colonies. Okay, so the image here I have on here is interesting. This is an image of someone being tarred and feathered. This was done to tax collectors, where they tar was poured on their body, then they were feathered to humiliate them. It wouldn't kill somebody, but it would be very painful, and it would be a kind of a terrible mess to clean up. Can you imagine cleaning hot tar and feathers off your body? It'd take forever, right? We're going to discuss more about tarring and feathering when we discuss the Sons of Liberty in the next couple of days. Okay. All right. And speaking of tarring, right, and feathering is. This last image I have for you is the Sons of Liberty defend the Republic. We're going to be discussing in a couple days the Sons of Liberty, but I wanted to just give you a heads up, and I thought this was a cool image to end the presentation today. All right, so here are the questions. Please complete these questions on the Google Doc attached to this assignment. Okay, there are 6 questions here. Please answer them the best you can. I will post this Google slide without me speaking over in the Screencastify, so you can review it as well. If you have any questions, you know how to contact me. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful week. See ya.